Scenic Beara Peninsula is one of the 5 rugged fingers that extend into the Atlantic from the southwest coast of Ireland. The Beara Way was developed by Beara Tourism and Development Association, and the route is a 196-kilometer waymarked circuit which takes in the well-known towns of Kenmare, Glengariff, Castletownbere, as well as villages with strange-sounding and intriguing names like Allihies and Aries. It has something for everyone.
Our journey from Adrigole to Castletownbere was long and difficult. We compounded this difficulty by deciding to take a several kilometer detour to Cumarkeen Lake, which was up on the foothills of Hungry Hill, and in a wetter season has a huge waterfall called Mare's Tail that runs down the hill. This was all dried up at this point, but the lake was still there and was beautiful. We didn't realize how much pain this small detour would cause us later on when we straggled into Castletownbere half dead. The way took us along rocky mountain paths and through pastures, over stone walls and with the sheep. We had a beautiful walk up one side of Hungry Hill, and then we circled around and saw the other side of it. The rock formations and jagged outlines of the mountains really contrast the green sheep pastures beautifully and speak a lot about the varying landscapes that you can see in Ireland. After traveling for about 24 hours by car, plane, and bus, we arrived in Ireland and made our way to the small but delightful village of Glengariff, where we stayed at Murphy's Village Hostel. It was a quite pleasant hostel, and we felt very happy and at home. We sauntered on down to the edge of town and found the Blue Lou, our first Irish pub on this trip. Inside, we watched a soccer match and met a young girl named Sasha who thought it was a lot of fun to catch small food articles in her mouth as we threw them into the air. We also met a girl from Mexico named Jemima, who told us all about her world travels, and met some very opinionated Irish people in the pub that wanted to talk about George Bush and the war. The next morning, we headed out on the Beara Way. Our first day of hiking consisted of walking up out of Glengariff Harbor and then up through the Monaghan Valley to Sugarloaf Mountain, and we made a dreadfully wrong turn and hiked up to the base of Sugarloaf Mountain, then had to hike back out, around, and over the shoulder. The shoulder actually went between Sugarloaf Mountain and Galbeg Mountain, and then down to the other side. And when we got to the top, you had beautiful views out over Bantry Bay, and the islands out there, and the pathway going down towards Adrigole eventually. We passed some standing stones, lots of sheep pastures, sheep shearing pens, and eventually came to a beautiful monolithic wedge tomb, which consisted of a couple stones standing on their sides, and then another stone set over the top like a roof. And apparently there's some really old guy buried underneath there somewhere that used to work there or be a king or who knows what. Peanut butter and jelly was the food of choice for our hikes, mostly because you could carry a can of peanut butter, a can of jelly, and a loaf of bread without making a huge mess in your backpack. Anyways, we had them every day while we were hiking, and Really enjoyed the homemade jams. Hitchhiking became a way of life for us on the trail because sometimes we were just too tired or too far away from where we needed to go to get there by walking, so we opted to hitch several times. The very first time we had to hitch, we were on the wrong end of Bear Island. We had to get back to the ferry by 6 o'clock, and we were trying to hitch over there, and well, we didn't have any luck for a while, and then we saw these guys that we had ridden over on the ferry with, a plaster repair truck, come up. So they stopped and let us on. I got in the front with the two Irish plaster repair guys, and Dave and Dan hopped in the back and sat on the sheetrock and plaster stuff in the back of the van. And off we took on the little one-lane Irish roads, full speed ahead because it was almost 6 o'clock, to get to the ferry on the other end of the island. So as he's bombing up and down these roads, they're talking and telling stories and laughing, and we come up over one hill really fast, and as we reach the crest and go over the top, two German tourists are coming up the other side of the hill very quickly as well in a small car. So the plaster guy puts the brakes on as fast as he can, and we all lurch forward in our seats, and as soon as we stop, I look back to see how Dan and Dave handled the stop, and they are plastered, so to speak, against the back of my seat on top of all of this plaster gear and hardware and stuff. Come to find out when we get out of the van at our final destination that they're covered in white plaster, dust and spackle and all kinds of stuff. It was quite an adventure, but we did make it to the ferry on time, and we got back into Castletown Beer just in time as it started to rain.
arrived in Killarney and decided we wanted to take a tour around the town. John had been to Ross Castle when he was in Ireland last year and wanted to take us back to show us the sights. Well, we get our stuff put away at the hostel and we meandered down through town and we passed by this really cool old church. The entrance to the park was clearly marked. We cross the bridge and go through the gates, and we follow the path through the woods to get to Ross Castle. Along the way, we pass by some horse-drawn carriages where people can pay to take a ride. As we go through the woods, we come out and we see the castle there in front of us. Evidently, from across the river, things look much bigger than they actually were. Just kidding. This was a small door that went up to one of the towers. Built for the O'Donoghue chieftains during the first half of the 15th century, Ross Castle has a typical tower house layout, with a banqueting hall and minstrel gallery on the top floor. It was battlemented in the Irish fashion and was surrounded by a barn wall with flanking towers at each corner, two of which now remain. The Cliffs of Moher are one of Ireland's most spectacular sights. They rise from Hag's Head to the south and reach their highest point at 230 meters just north of O'Brien's Tower. On a clear day, the view is tremendous. You can see the Aran Islands on the waters of Galway Bay. Beyond that lie the hills and valleys of Connemara in western Galway. With all that was going on, we really didn't have a problem catching some sleep when we could, even on the bus. Cistercian order came to Ireland in 1142 and preferred isolated and underpopulated locations for its monasteries. Nowhere is this more obvious than at Corcomroe, where the monastery stands in a small fertile valley surrounded by barren rock surfaces. It was founded in 1194 by Donnell More O'Brien, King of Thomland, who built many churches. The design of the church was typically Cistercian. The main part of the church, the nave, had aisles. The east end, or presbytery, had a stone-vaulted roof, and to the side are transepts with small chapels. Only fragments remain of the other parts of the monastery, including the cloister court, the gatehouse, and what may have been the infirmary or guest house. By the 15th century, it was too poor to sustain a full community of monks, and the church was shortened by the insertion of a roughly built wall. In order to get to the abbey, we decided to take a shortcut through a couple pastures. We would jump the fence, and we start walking across the final pasture, and we look in the corner, and there's this bull there. He's this huge animal, and he's just watching us. So we keep one eye on the bull and one eye on the fence. We slowly make our way to the gate of where we want to get out. And I notice as we're walking, uh-oh, Dan's got a red hat on. So we kind of pick up our pace a little bit, and we get to the fence, we get on the other side, we breathe a huge sigh of relief. The bull never moved, we got through safely, no harm done. Yet another interesting close call experience we had in Ireland. Good times. Among the many interesting tombs and effigies in the chancel is one of a crowned figure, said to be that of Conor O'Brien, grandson of the founder and a noted benefactor of the abbey. The stone carvings on the capitals at the top of the columns are said to be the only botanical carvings to be found in an Irish church of this period. O'Hain's Church, which is located at Kilmacduagh Abbey, was built for the Augustinian canons in the early 13th century, possibly by Owen O'Hain, lord of the district who died in 1253. The stonework of the decorated chancel arch and east window is among the best in Kincut, and belongs to the school of Kilfenora and Corcomroe. Part of the nave of the church collapsed in the 15th century and was replaced by a wall inside it. The canons stayed on until around 1584.
ziggy zong zong, ziggy zong, ziggy zong, ziggy 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 zong zong, ziggy zong, ziggy zong, ziggy 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 zong zong, ziggy zong, ziggy zong, ziggy 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 zong zong, ziggy zong, ziggy zong,
M'en va à la fontaine pour y pêcher du poisson, le zigazon zinzon.
M'en va à la fontaine pour y pêcher du poisson, le zigazon zinzon.
La fontaine n'est pas fond, m'en suis coulé de fond, le zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
La fontaine n'est pas fonde, m'en suis coulé de fond, le zigazon zinzon.
La fontaine est profonde, m'en suis coulé de fond, le zigazon zinzon.
Père ici passe trois cavaliers barons, le zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Par ici passe trois cavaliers barons, le zigazon zinzon.
Par ici passe trois cavaliers barons, le zigazon zinzon.
Comme dans les poubelles, si je vous tirais du fond, le zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Comme dans les poubelles, si je vous tirais du fond, le zigazon zinzon.
Comme dans les poubelles, si je vous tirais du fond, le zigazon zinzon.
Tirez, dit-elle, la place à nous verrons, le zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Tirez, dit-elle, la place à nous verrons, le zigazon zinzon.
Tirez, dit-elle, la place à nous verrons, le zigazon zinzon.
Quand la bête fut à terre, se sauve à la maison, le zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Quand la bafure de terre se sauve à la maison, le zigazon zinzon.
Quand la bafure de terre se sauve à la maison, le zigazon zinzon.
S'assoit à la fenêtre, compose une chanson, le zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
S'assoit à la fenêtre, compose une chanson, le zigazon zinzon.
S'assoit à la fenêtre, compose une chanson, le zigazon zinzon.
Mon petit cœur engage n'est pas pour un baron, le zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Mon petit cœur engage n'est pas pour un baron, le zigazon zinzon.
Mon petit cœur engage n'est pas pour un baron, le zigazon zinzon.
Mais pour un homme de guerre qui a du poil au menton, la zigazon zinzon.
Fille en haut, fille en bas, fille, femme aussi, puis là-bas, tin, le rigolet, ha, ha.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
Sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, sont-tu pas ta clé, tourier, guéama.
I close my eyes only for a moment, and the moment's gone. pass before my eyes in curiosity. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind.